Battery metal miners are pushing hard to meet strict environmental requirements from their buyers. Is the precious metal space doing the same? I'm with President and CEO of Integra Resources, George Salamis. George, welcome back to Kitco.
Michael, good morning, or good afternoon, rather.
We've seen strict environmental social governance requirements put on battery metal miners, mostly around emissions at mines. Where's the ESG push coming from in the precious metal space?
Yeah, that's interesting observation, and I'm really not a battery metals expert by any stretch of the imagination. But from what I understand, what's going on right now, there's a lot of ESG pressure that's related to carbon footprint involved in the production of battery metals. Everything related to battery metals. For example, from what we know, the automakers are keeping a really close eye on the carbon footprint of the actual lithium producers themselves. They're the ones who are making the materials that are actually designed to decrease carbon footprint overall. So they're keeping a close eye on the carbon footprints of the individual producers. Additionally, a lot of these battery metals are produced in countries with really poor labor standards, let's face it. And just as an aside, there's an Idaho-based company that we're really excited to see roll out for the first time this past week, First Cobalt. They're advancing their project in Idaho and really providing a potential source of North American cobalt in the end of the day. So, people are coming around to this idea that mining is really important in taking a direction that the world needs to go into, right? People love solar panels, but they might not love silver mining, but really silver is a big component of solar panels, for example. So a big focus on ESG excellence, if you will, is one of the ways of how mining is working to really bridge that, a cognitive gap, if you will. Miners are really proud to be leading the charge on producing the raw materials that will really be supporting modern life going forward.
Now, I know you reached out. You are doing a big push at Integra, your company, regarding ESG. You had a long post within LinkedIn. Let's step back, though. Say if I'm a junior and I'm ignoring ESG, I'm a gold junior. I'm ignoring it, and rather I'm just doing the bare minimum just to make the company continue to run. What problems could I potentially encounter, George?
Yeah. So the I guess the angle of that question, I guess the first thing that jumps to mind is, first principles. Doing ESG well is really simply a matter of doing good business in the end of the day. I think what's kind of what might be flawed in the scenario that you painted, if I'm that ESG focused junior, what's the bare minimum of what I could be doing? It's really about doing good business in the end of the day. You shouldn't be viewing ESG as a cost. In the end of the day, it's really an opportunity. And if you don't view it that way, you're really missing the point, I really believe. A company that goes above and beyond on behalf of the community surrounding these mining operations and for the habitats that surround these mining operations really makes that company much more resilient when it comes time to actually build and start operating on a given mine. And really what it does is it creates these deep-rooted, genuine levels of support at the community level, and in addition to the positive impacts that the project has. So it's kind of a win-win, but it really needs to be looked at as simply a way of doing good business and not a cost.
It kind of comes back to that old saw. I remember, what is it? A safe mine is a productive mine?
Correct.
Is there a potential existential threat with gold demand at about 50% jewelry? I think of mined diamonds versus synthetic diamonds and the tussle over who's better for the environment. So really this push into ESG is something that gold producers and gold miners really have to take a look at.
Yeah, gold. It feels like gold is in a period of kind of uncertainty, trying to find itself. Right. I think we would all sort of subscribe to that. And yes, a lot of gold is used in jewelry. It's, as you mentioned, 50% of the total production criteria. But there's also strong central bank buying, which to me means gold is really serving its purpose yet again as a protection against uncertainty. It always has, and it always will. Both economic stability, social stability, et cetera. And then that begs the question, obviously, where do the cryptos sit relative to gold? And without question, the cryptos have eaten some of gold's lunch, let's face it. But I own crypto currencies and I own gold, and I think there's a place for gold in both portfolios. And really, ironically, given our discussions on ESG, crypto is a really interesting investment. There's a lot that's not known about crypto and how it behaves. What we're seeing is really crypto is a risk-on investment for the most part. It's been embraced really by a certain generation, and I don't think that's going to disappear at the end of the day. But gold still will perform its role alongside cryptocurrencies. I struggle not to see gold performing. As a matter of fact, everything that I can look back at from my own personal career of seeing the ebbs and flows of gold over time. Gold is doing exactly what it's done in the past. And I think between the stimulus that's ongoing, economic uncertainty, things like inflationary pressures, I don't think that those are going away. I have a hard time really thinking that gold will simply continue to trade sideways. I think it's got a bright future.
You're taking me back to the question I was going to ask later in the interview, but let's just dove it in right now as well, too. You've seen all of these ebbs and flows, George, as you said before as well, too. What do you think are going to be some of the trends that are going to be pulling it higher?
So right now, I think there's no question where there's a bit of fatigue, right? Gold has had a really good run, let's face it, over the last couple of years here. So there's a bit of a pause that's ongoing, and that's fine. There's some seasonality related to what's going on in the gold price, that's fine too. But I can't help but not think of the near future where we'll be in a sort of a $1,900 to $2,000 per ounce gold price environment. That's, I believe, is going to start fueling some M&A in the sector. So that's good for the majors, good for the project builders like ourselves in the end of the day. So I think gold's got a good future here. We just need to hang on. There's just seasonality afoot right now.
Back to the ESG discussion. You said in the piece that you published in LinkedIn that standards don't really exist yet for juniors in terms of ESG compliant. I also think about juniors because, it's not like a mine where, you're operating on a set of standard operating procedures. You really have a lot more flexibility, or you require a lot more flexibility because, again, it is a junior and you're exploring something that is brand new. What should the standards be? What types of standards should there be for ESG for juniors?
Yeah, so I mean, getting back to kind of the early part of your question, there really are no standards, and it's quite frustrating. We find ourselves as a company at Integra, basically trying to think about A, the right thing to do, and B, what will the future standards look like? So it feels at times like we're making it up as we go. That said, I think we're going to be doing a lot of good, things going forward from an ESG perspective. Really, in the end of the day, a big part of ESG is related to disclosure. Sort of simply put, it's really what helps people evaluate the company's performance. So all that disclosure needs to be there on things like your carbon footprint, your hiring practices, the benefits that you're giving your employees, your stakeholders, your corporate governance policies, et cetera. So all of these things are really related to disclosure, full stop. I think the issue now really might be is that there are a multitude of different groups out there providing these standards. And so it's up to us as a company to really pick and choose like which one of these apply to what we're doing in the end of the day. So that could make it tough for us. This makes it hard really for our shareholders as well to compare apples to apples in the end of the day. Governing bodies providing clear ESG disclosure standards for exploration companies, for example, like how they operate. This would go a long way for us. And to take the decision making out of the equation for us would be really big because, again, it feels like at times we're just trying to pick and choose and guess ourselves what is the right thing to do in the end of the day. There are some jurisdictions, for example, Quebec, which was where we had our last asset, where there's a mining association that's actually creating a set of standards and a certification process for the junior. I think things like that are really wise. It's something that we need everywhere.
Getting back to that picking and choosing, can you talk about some examples of companies that you think have done, have done astoundingly well, or have been some type of set of some type of examples in the ESG space?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the two that kind of jump to mind right now, top of the list, one would be Cisco Mining. They've got really high standards when it comes to disclosure. And boy, when I look at their disclosure, they are really a model of disclosure, certainly on the ESG end. So they're one to follow. Integra Resources as well. I look at what they've done, a huge amount of work really creating a strong partnership with the local First Nations around their deposit. That's really going to benefit the company and the local Indigenous population surrounding that mining operation in the future. So they're doing some great work. And I think last but not least us, Integra. I mean, I'm really proud of what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks here in terms of making these great strides at developing this really solid ESG policy. We announced a partnership with Trout Unlimited, for example. That'll go a long way towards incorporating sort of a diverse perspective in terms of our future development plans. We're doing a lot of good work on that end, and there's more to come as we roll things out over the course of the year. What we're really aiming for right now is to kind of focus on the PFS full stop, and then sort of circle back with more disclosure on what we're doing from an ESG perspective.
I think that would be a good place to end it. Can we catch up on Integra and you're advancing that PFS, and then also talking about folding in the ESG pieces that you made such a big push on? What's going to be some of the major milestones over the next 12 months, George?
Yeah, so interesting. So right now, the focus, aside from exploration, obviously we've got 3 drill rigs in operation, but the focus for us is really the sort of getting the PFS study out, which is due sometime in the fourth quarter of this year. Really interesting, a couple of things that we're looking at, getting back to the ESG topic and pre-feasibility. We're looking at some really cool ways of getting some means of electrification into the operations, really sort of focusing on low emissions in terms of haulage, for example, looking at renewable energy options to supply power to the site. We're looking at all these things. And of course, what we're seeing, the great news is a lot of these things are actually going to be cost savings at the end of the day. So, in the end of the day, there will be benefits to actually making a more sustainable, greener mining operation by incorporating some of these things. Pretty interesting stuff.
George, thanks for sharing your thoughts with Kitco.
Thank you, Michael. All the best to you.
He's George Salamis. He is President and CEO of Integra Resources. My name is Michael McRae, and you are watching Kitco Mining.